Okay, I think we are a go. Hello and welcome to On Surviving. My name is Megan and I'm a survivor.
And my name is Nobly, and I am a survivor.
Together, we're bringing On Surviving to the world because it matters.
It matters to me because alongside the potent fears of our frail hearts is so much hurt, loss, and trust issues that I've had to navigate through all alone with very little resources and very little trust. I am passionate about doing this because I get to share my story and be that trusting person to help navigate through that I didn't have and hopefully make a difference in people's process of surviving.
And it matters to me because I want others to recognize the deep strength and rich humanity involved in every step of the process of surviving the tragedies life brings many of us. I suffered silently and alone for too long. And I want to help others to find hope more quickly and readily and feel and be less alone in the process of surviving.
Yeah. On surviving matters because you matter, we matter.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and start every time we get together by checking in with each other, and we check in just quickly about how we're showing up, how we've been recently, on 7 different wellness factors. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen on that. Give me just a second, and here we go. Can you see that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you want to start us off, Novalie? Have you been
Sure.
on each of these? Also,
Huh?
and by the way, for folks, anybody who may be listening, we are do these on a 1 to 5 scale. 5 is just amazing. It really couldn't be better. And 1, it sucks pretty bad. Really couldn't be worse. So somewhere in that scale, where are you on each of these points, Nobly?
On my physical, I'm at about a 3 because I tore my meniscus and I'm having a little bit of knee pain. So 3 on that one. Intellectual, I'm going with a 4 because I just been learning a lot of new stuff at work and I feel like I'm learning it well finally. Emotional, it's just only about a 2 because I had a case at work that involved an infant fatality, and that hit very close to home because my son passed as an infant, and so just a 3 on that one yet. Still, it's been a few days, but I'm still running about a 3 on that one. Um, Spiritual, I feel like I'm 4 because I pray and I do a lot of things. It would be a 5, but I haven't gone out to nature, which is that's a huge part. So I need to do that.
Mhm.
Environmental, I'm in Oregon, and I Oregon is a nice state to live in. I think it's pretty year round. So I'm at about a 4 with that one. Um, Social, I'm also about a 4 because I did some isolation during the the devastation in my heart over the infant fatality, and that was really critical for me to do that the way I did that. But so that's I'm running it about that. I feel like I did relatively well considering, and that's why that number is a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Um, and occupational, I finally have the job that all my years of addiction and that I never thought was reachable. I didn't feel like I was even employable for like a Burger King.
Yeah.
And I was just going to be okay with that. And then
Mm.
so that's a 5. Yeah. So not a shabby week.
Yeah, really, really. I mean, and it's interesting, right? That you say not a shabby week, and there was this really major challenge in there that I'm sure. Well, you said, I mean, it's ongoing, right? It's not like a once and
Yeah.
then it's done. And I know we talked about it a little bit, yesterday, but I just wanted to check in and see if you want to spend any more time talking about
Um,
that or anything else that
I
you
just want
care.
to explain why I said the week hasn't been shabby. To follow up on that a little bit, I was able to find some huge resources for the family that had the fatality. I was able to house them, not only temporarily, but permanently as well. So that I'm not going to say it made it all better, but that helped me with the rest of those feelings that I was having throughout the week.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of tears shed, and I pretty much was in a fetal position for the rest of that entire day. Um, so I think had I not allowed myself to do that, I don't think the rest of my week would have flowed the way that it did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so um, basically, um, I was proud that I could help them in their just devastating time. And I knew that sooner or later there was a good chance that something like this was going to come up at the workplace. And
Yeah.
um, I kind of I know now, what worked for me, and maybe it's never, you can never plan for those kind of emotions, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I imagine you didn't. I mean, they really did come up pretty quickly
yeah,
into your new job to just hit straight home.
yeah,
Couple of things I was just thinking about, like, oh yeah, it probably would. I mean, in all the work that I've done working with people experiencing homelessness or houselessness, is people dealing with devastation like that, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you and I know personally, you even better than me, and so it's that kind of devastation that can bring us to that point in our of like in struggle in like every way in
yeah,
life. So it makes some sense to me. And the other thing that came to my mind as I was listening to you, Nobly, is um how it would feel good to be in your position, I would think, because you were actually able to help. Like some of my worst times, whether it's been something I was going through or someone I loved was going through, is a sense of helplessness.
yeah,
Right, and you actually had resources and tools and were able to be there, and with strength of knowing at least some of what this family was going through. So um,
yeah.
I'm just so happy you're there for them.
Thank you. It felt
Mhm.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
that in
Right.
that aspect.
Right. We know, relatively, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I'm going to bring this back up and do my quick um check in here. Mine starts off on the lower end. Well, about a 3 on the physical. I picked up a little virus last week, which I've been fighting, and in order to try to keep my sinuses clear and to prevent coughing, I took a Dayquil a little bit before this, and that just turned my stomach. So I'm a little off, and hopefully that doesn't show up too much. Intellectually, I am feeling a little bit slow today, although slightly sharper than I was the last couple of days. So that's good. I'm on that uphill swing. So maybe like a 3.5 on that one.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I am emotionally I'm also about a 3.5. I feel a little bit tender because I'm in the midst of some potential more big life changes here, that are a little bit of a struggle that I'm trying not to struggle with. I'm actually trying to be open and to whatever the universe has in store, and hopefully the answers will come to me. Which brings me to the spiritual, which I is a solid 5 right now. I just feel super engaged. Where this is very unusual for me. I have been on an uphill climb for the past year or so on this, and yeah, I feel, uh, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm doing what I should be doing, need to be doing, and where I need to be, and I'm at peace and in touch. So
That's
anyway,
awesome.
yeah. Environmentally, I'm coming to y'all from Cabo San Lucas, which is stunning, beautiful, warm day just about every day. I'm going to give it. I'm only going to give it a 4 just because I've been sick and haven't been able to enjoy it as much. But right outside my door is a 5. So as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
anyway. Socials of 4. I'm doing better every day with being connected to people that matter to me, and more people to reach out to and get in better touch with. But I'm just feel good about the trajectory after many years of debilitating depression, PTSD, and all that good stuff. So I'm gonna count my blessings that on that one. And occupationally, I'm gonna give it a 4.5 because I'm doing what I want to be doing. Shoot, it should probably be a 5, but the 5 will come when I am fully working on my writing the way I want to be doing. But between doing this with you, Nobly, and everybody who will be coming to join us, and doing my other wellness work. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to do the
Yeah.
work that I have in front of me. So there we go. Overall, really good. And there's nothing I think that I feel like I need to process more here. I think some things about kind of that life change stuff that I talked about may come into some of the, Facebook chatter. I don't know. It'll come out more down the road, but I'm going to be content with just sitting with it, I think, for now. So, so good. Let's see. Now, I guess let's talk about what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about surviving anniversaries, anniversaries after losing a loved one who is very special to us. In particular, we are talking about the loss of our children, and may actually talk about some other folks who are important to us as well. And we know also that um, many others have lost spouses or dear friends or parents. Even some people have just very close relationships with grandparents where when lost they feel unanchored and really struggle with that as well. So all of that's on our minds as we talk about dealing with anniversaries that come after that. So we decided to go ahead and start our official series by talking about this issue um, because of the time of year. Or Nobly, do you want to share some more about that thinking?
Um, yeah, this is really important to me because of just having to navigate through the holiday season, another holiday season without my son. And it always brings me back to the very first, holiday season. And I can just describe it as just utter devastation. Like, and I just it's super important to, to me, to let the listener, that not just the listener that is really fresh on their loss, but all the listeners, that they're not alone, and that people do understand, and that people do care. You know, um, it's just any kind of support, and basically just share my story, and just and help, and let people that are listening know that 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 I understand, that I fully understand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally with you on that. It was um important to me too. It just felt, I mean, it kind of felt right, even though um the beginning of the year of the first is different for each of us.
yeah,
October for you, Nobly, July for me, um at least in terms of loss of our children. um we're also at the beginning of a new year, and so it kind of felt right. Meanwhile, I just over the last week, several eh, two actually key things came up. My A very dear friend also who lost her son, very, very tragically. He was murdered in front of her, and uh, quite a few years ago. But as you and I know, that stuff is big. Anyway, he
yeah,
just had his birthday yesterday, and another friend of mine who recently lost her husband, um, was actually celebrating the birthday of their cat, which was which can also be a devastating loss, and that kind of connection between the two of them
yeah,
all felt really real. So I don't know. I feel like we're talking about it at the right time. Maybe it's always the right time to talk about this, but appreciate
yeah,
folks listening and sharing this to others. There will be a recording so folks can share it, however and whenever they like. After that, that'll be available on Facebook with a link to the YouTube video. I do want to caution folks, though. We're going to speak our truths. We're going to speak honestly and openly and about our experiences. We're also going to talk about strength and hope and all of that good stuff. In the midst of that is some hard topics and some hard things that we've gone through and may trigger um, trauma or really hard feelings for folks. So I just want to encourage people to take care of yourselves. Turn it off. No hard feelings if you need to turn it off. If you want to come back to it later with some support, great. Really definitely encourage folks to reach out to loved ones, to talk and process, maybe even to a therapist. If anybody is feeling alone out there and like they don't have someone to talk to, I tell you what, there are quite a few years that I felt that way. I do want to go ahead and share one other thing, um, is that no matter what, there is always a crisis line available for anybody who is feeling like really in a rough spot. So um, please remember you're not alone and you do matter, and please reach out for help. Crisis lines are available anytime for free wherever you are. In the United States, just dial 988. I've also added the Mexico number since that's where I'm coming to y'all from, 800 911 2000. And if anybody is listening from another country, there's actually a whole long list of hotlines by country on Wikipedia. So all you have to do is Google, find list of more suicide hotlines by country on Wikipedia, and you will find it. So, stopping to share that now. So that said, let's talk about this stuff. Um, we did start, and we will start each one of these things of sharing the articles that we each wrote on this topic. Um, and we realized that not everybody has read them. So, no, believe. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start? Either way, do you want to start just kind of sharing on our
Do you
articles?
mind starting?
Not at all. I don't mind at all.
Thank you.
Hopefully, no one's gotten too sick of my voice at this point.
No.
So I wrote a piece that kind of started with, I was actually out kayaking on a lake or a reservoir really in Colorado where I lived before I was here, before I moved here. And it was just this kind of little beginning of a poem that came to me as I was looking in the sky, and I just made me think of Jasmine. It's my daughter. Actually, you know what? Before I get into that, can I just pause for a second? I realize let's take a moment and just like just honor our kiddos, tell a little bit about our kiddos, and then we'll tell a little bit more about our pieces and our stories. So, and maybe I'll just do mine now and you can do it yours at the beginning. So I'm going to share. Here's a picture. Let's see. I'm always trying to get this right. There's my little Jasmine. She's about 8 years old in that picture. She died when she was 11 in an accident. We were floating down a river that we did every year, and a tree had fallen in the river. And we pulled up to it, and we're going to walk around it, and the river sucked us under, and she didn't make it. And yeah, so my experience is wrapped up in deep grief over loss of an amazing and sweet kiddo. I'd like to share this picture because if I can get her little eyes, I just love the look on her face and her eyes, because she was just this sweet thing. She's also committed. I'm going to show this other one here, which I think is really fun. Her in her little foofy skirt digging in the garden, because she was all sorts of flair and fancy, and also loved the earth and the environment and cared for people and the world around her, the earth. And yeah, she was is a brilliant spirit. And yeah, so my story is embedded in grief over that loss, as well as the trauma of the accident, which I talk about in other pieces, and I'm not going to belabor here. But so you know a little bit of context about that. So you know, she and I had a she was a kid that when I never planned to be a parent. And when I got pregnant with her, I was a young mom. I was 20 when I got pregnant. Um, and I was really wrestling with what to do for like maybe about 2 minutes. But then this overwhelming, powerful feeling that I just needed to be with this kiddo came over me, and so it was. And I raising her and the work I did to raise her, I is about the proudest, the best thing that I have done in my life. Yeah. So so my what I wrote about was started off was kind of reflecting on how these days it feels like even ordinary days sometimes feel like an anniversary of ordinary days, right? Like I just wish she was like with me out there kayaking, right? Like, I mean, those are the kinds of things that we used to do together. So sometimes that pops up. But then I went into talking more in depth about how, in particular, that first year was, because there were a lot of people around really trying, um, very worried about me, as they should have been. It was a very difficult time. Um, and Um, and so I kind of talk about how each day showed up, and each of the holidays and anniversaries was a bit um, different for me, right? Some were bigger than others. Christmas was a biggie for us. Um, the biggest of all, Mother's Day also. I mean, Mother's Day, I just like I I just couldn't. I wanted to just close my eyes and get to the next day. The birthday and the death date were um, particularly rough. And then of course the day after, the first day of all the rest of the years, I talk about a little bit about how difficult that was as well. And then finally, I talk about all the way up to it's been 16 years, which I think is why I can talk about this the way I'm talking about this now. Um, Trust me, though, if on another day I would be talking about this and tears would be streaming down my face and I'd have tissues, and it just,
Yeah.
you never know how it's going to come out. Still 16 years later. So I talk about how, especially on those big days, the birthdays and the death dates, how I need to carve out space for that. We'll talk a little bit more about what's helpful, because that's one of the things that's been helpful for me. But we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But that was the kind of tail end of the space. And the other thing that I guess I wanted to point out is when I talk about in this past year, her birthday um, came this horrible, uh, I don't know, there's this crazy incident where I was ready to have this super happy day, and I was listening to this basically a playlist of music that I put together. I mean, not the whole playlist, but basically I set it up on stations or Spotify's, when they had the stations version. And so I put a bunch of artists in that I knew she liked. So I was going to listen to those. And I was baking her a cake. And then she loved Avril Lavigne. And this Avril Lavigne song came on with the chorus. The words were, "Don't let me drown." And as that chorus came on at the same time, this my oven started freaking out, and there was this alarm going and flashing lights, and it's just like I like collapsed. And I literally felt like Jasmine was screaming at me and blaming me. So which was like the survival guilt thing I had posted a little bit on about on Facebook. Like I didn't know where that came from. So luckily last time we we talked about this a while ago, and nobly thank you, because you said really sweetly, like, did you go get counseling for that? And my answer is now yes, I have started counseling about that. So that's my piece, that kind of what I'm talking about in terms of anniversaries. And we can talk a little bit more once Tashina comes on and joins us about kind of our experiences and what we're similar and different. But let's hear about what you wrote about and your experience. And first, do you want to introduce Waylon to us?
Yeah. So, um, I was married for 16 years, and that whole time I couldn't get pregnant. So I figured it was me, and I just kind of I just figured I was never going to be a mom, so I had Labradors and I loved them crazy. And then just 4 months after my marriage ended, I got in another relationship, and I got pregnant at age 40. And so this was my Merrick. Waylon James Adams was born October 22nd of 2014 and passed October 24th of 2014. Um, and um, uh, uh, I, this is I don't have a lot of pictures, but this is me at my baby shower. Can you see it at all?
Yes, he moved just a little bit off to the side so we can see more of you. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful,
And so
beautiful.
and so and then I have a couple pictures. Sorry, I'm a little ill prepared
Oh,
on
you're
that,
good.
but um it's kind of hard to see, but this was his 3D ultrasound.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, pictures have gotten better.
Yeah. And then this is the last picture. Can you see it?
Oh,
Sorry.
hold still. Oh, sweet baby. Yeah. Aw.
Yeah. So uh so my piece I talk about how I felt being, in the hospital and having my son ripped away. I was living on a Native American reservation at the time, and it was miles and miles and miles and miles away from any kind of prenatal care. And so I had a high risk pregnancy. I didn't get a lot of prenatal care, um, and there was complications, and I lost my son. And so my piece talks about how I felt like, why are you taking my child? What do you mean? You vile person. You're a liar. And I'm pounding on my father, who can't help me, and I want him to make it go away. And I talk a lot about that. And um I had a crippling addiction that followed that. And so I talk about that. And it's about how my heart died that day, and I tried to take my own life um, by overdosing on heroin, and I wasn't successful. And so then I just went about living on the streets of Olympia, Washington for a couple years with extreme despair. I just wanted to be with my baby.
Mm.
And as I was getting clean and sober, I got a visual of my baby's face and how sad it looked,
Mm.
because I wasn't right. And I locked myself in my son's nursery for 4 days, after. And I don't know if I talk about that or not, but I also talk about just how the pain of the first anniversaries, and mine are pretty much the same as yours. I think that Mother's Day was the most brutal, um, because unfortunately, some of my family didn't consider me a mother because I just had him for such a short time. And so um, I kind of got excluded in, getting Mother's Day presents from my family, and so that was. And then of course the birthday and the death day just being a little over a day apart. It, the whole month of October is rough. Um, and just kind of touching bases on what you said, like, it's been 8 years this last October. And I just don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel from date to date. I don't know what that's going to look like. And so I talk a little bit about that, and how I still feel Waylon. He's a lingering monarch. butterfly, or he's just around me, and I think that I get a lot of comfort in that, and I'm not a believer of time heals all pain.
Yeah.
I don't find that to ring true at all. But
Yeah.
so that's a little bit about my piece,
Yeah.
and about my boy.
Well, thank you so much. Gosh, I was writing down as I'm listening to you several things that we definitely share.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna hold on those because I'm gonna be real curious about what Tashina has to say because I
yeah,
suspect there may be some similarities there
yeah,
too. And if not, we'll talk about it all anyway. What I do want to talk about to mention is first of all, thank you so for just being so real. I love you so much. And
yeah. You too.
um and one of the things I love about being with other people who have had this experience is that we know that tears are a part of the process, and we can just let them roll
Yeah.
as they need to, and they come when they come, and don't when they don't, and that's all good
Yeah,
and
like you
okay.
said, like I can talk about this one day, and be fine, and then the next, I'm a hot mess. So,
Right, right. So, and I'm completely with you too, right? On this
yeah,
like pain, um this pain of this loss doesn't go away.
no,
I do think in my case, and I just from our conversations, I would think you would agree, my relationship to it has changed,
yeah,
right? So I'm
mhm,
able to um understand and be with the pain and give space for the pain and
yeah,
have it not crush me,
yeah,
or maybe let it crush me for a day knowing that I'm going to get up the next and it's going to be okay,
yeah,
like and my sense of my relationship to her and her spirit has changed, where frankly in my um drug and alcohol diving and spiral into addiction afterward, I think kind of cut me off um, from
yeah.
that connection to her spirit.
Same.
So even though getting sober was super difficult and super painful to face all this stuff without a drink in my hands, it also eventually allowed me to feel more connected to her and have a new relationship. So that's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with that.
yeah. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
guess I don't want folks to lose hope if they're at the beginning. Like, oh my God,
yeah,
it's like it's always going to feel this overwhelming and all encompassing. Cause I remember feeling like that. I remember, oh, so clearly feeling
yeah,
like it was always going to be like that. Um, and that is not the way it is now. It
yeah.
was, yeah. So anyway,
Thank
so there's a
you.
little bit of
Thank you
hope.
for that, because
Yeah.
it does. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Connectivity issue. Can you hear me okay?
I can now.
Okay, cool. Yep, it just gave me the, oh, your internet connection is unstable. So hopefully that won't happen too much. If it kicks me out, I'll come back.
Yeah.
We will roll with what we need to. So let's use that as a prompt to bring Tashina in. Do you
Yes.
want to introduce Tashina? And Tashina, go ahead and come on camera and on mute. Tashina has luckily been listening in the background. So happy you're with us.
Yeah. I would like to introduce our first guest to Sheena. She is a personal, dear, dear friend of mine. So I'm especially excited to be um, doing this with her as well. And she has had a substantial loss in her life recently, and so I will let Tashina tell you her story. But I'm excited, Tashina. So welcome. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you, Nobly. I would first like to start with just saying how appreciative I am of the two of you not only sharing your stories, but inviting me to share mine as well. This is especially important to me, partially because it is so important to you, Nobly, but also because my most recent loss, I was able to walk through a lot easier, having had a much more substantial loss. And I don't want to minimize either loss. I don't want to minimize anyone's loss at all. Um, but I had a pretty substantial loss previous to this one, and so it was, yeah, it's a lot to digest, and so I'm just gonna kind of start from the very beginning, my first loss, and then kind of go into my most recent loss.
Wonderful.
So my brother David, I'm just going to introduce both of them really quick if I can screen share.
Please do. You should be able to. Let me know if it's giving you trouble.
Let's see here. I don't know. It may not let me.
Did you find it down in your bottom dock?
Yeah, I found it, but it's giving me. We'll do that. It's saying to open system preferences. So actually, I did this for a reason. I have them right here on my phone.
Great. I love plan B options. Yes.
Must have. Plan B is super important.
You're a woman after my own heart.
So this right here, it's kind of bright because it's a photo on my phone, but this is my brother and my son Uriah. My brother was also basically a second dad to my son. So not only through that loss did I have to manage my own grief, but I had a 5-year-old's grief to manage as well.
Wow.
And then this is one of my favorites because Lord knows we all have issues, right?
Bless him.
Okay, so I lost my brother David January 2nd, 2016 to overdose. That was I will never forget that day. I remember I had driven to Medford to get I live in Oregon, by the way. I had driven to Medford to pick my oldest brother up and bring him up to see my other brother just after Christmas or just right before the new year. And I was in my addiction at the time. And so the things that I was seeing on the way home just didn't make sense to me. But the one thing I remember the most of that day is watching anywhere from 25 to 50 full-grown bald eagles take flight from a field. Wow. And in seeing that, didn't think anything of it other than it was just majestic, right? Like very majestic. And 45 minutes later, I got the phone call. My brother was my rock. He was the one that was always there in any time of need or anything. I need my car fixed. I need somebody to hang out with my kid, anything like that. He was always there. And I got that call, and I remember just how like I remember like asking again, what what several times, and then it finally clicked in my head. And I can usually talk about this without crying, but not today. So
and as you heard me say, tears are a-okay.
yeah,
And I'm joining you, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say thank. I
Yeah.
want to say thank you.
Yeah.
So I just remember screaming out and like throwing the phone and hitting the ground. Like every fiber of my being was ready to die. And I was in my addiction at this point, and I hit a pretty bad downward spiral for about 7 months after he passed. I lost a few things previous that were important, like my home. I had left my spouse. And so I remember the first 2 weeks very vividly. It was literally like I was watching everything around me going on and watching myself from back here.
Uh-huh.
I remember at one point, I was ready to commit suicide. And the only thing that stopped me was my son. Knowing that my son didn't have anybody else to turn to, that would genuinely be there for him 100%.
Yeah.
So I spent the next 7 months pretty loaded and pretty out of it. I do remember the first year, his birthday, so he died in January, and I got clean in July 16th of 2016 is my clean date.
Congratulations.
And so I went through Father's Day. I went through National Brothers Day. They've made all these other little national holidays, which is all fine and well. I appreciate it. It's just a day to appreciate somebody.
Yeah.
But it opens up another door for grief.
Yes.
His birthday, we shared a birthday month. Our birthdays were 2 days apart. So, and then, all the holidays we had spent together for so many years as well. And to not have that was huge. And so when after my brother died, I lost custody of my child because of my situation and being in my addiction. And my dad really stepped up and stepped in. And so then, the first year was super hard. And I think with my brother, it was probably the first 3 years that were the most difficult. Because, the first 7 months I was loaded. So I wasn't feeling all those feelings. Like I had those thoughts that I should be feeling those feelings, but I wasn't feeling those feelings. And so after I got clean, I got to experience all of that all over again with the grief. And yeah, it's definitely a challenge some days. But I've learned to acknowledge acknowledge the pain. Because without his presence in my life, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah.
And I, for so long, I was like, I searched for that next person to be my rock, right? I searched for that. Not in relationships, not in anything other than a friend who could, I looked for people that reminded me of my brother. And so I started spending all my holidays at my dad's house. And I have 5 brothers, but David is the one that I was the closest to. And with that being said, I started spending all my holidays at my dad's house. My son came to know my dad. My dad and I were estranged until I was 16, and then again until I was like 22, and then again until my brother passed away. And so he really stepped up and stepped into that role of somebody that would call me on my shit. Sorry for the language.
You were totally fine.
He really stepped up into that role of my dad, which is what my brother was, and pretty much, like he wasn't my dad, right? But I looked to him as a fatherly figure. His steady job, married, all the things. My brother wasn't a saint, but at the same time, neither am I.
Who of us are, really?
Thank God.
Right?
Thank God. And so with my dad stepping into that role, my dad was the one that I called when I was struggling. My dad was the one that I'd call him on the phone and ask him how he was doing. And he'd be like, well, what's going on? I can hear it in your voice, and I remember a phone call with my dad. Let me introduce my dad real quick here.
Yes.
This is probably the best picture I have of my dad.
Nice.
That's his name is Calvin Lee Oker. And then there's one more of him holding me when I was a baby.
Oh, that's great.
Love that one.
So my dad I remember one time specifically that my dad, I called him, it was during the fires of 2020, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, the fires of Oregon of 2020.
Oh, yes.
And I called him during that because he lived up in the Portland area. No, it was the year, I think it was the year prior. It was like the fires, the gorge, when the gorge happened. That was 2018, I believe, 2017 or 2018. So I called him up and I was just talking like, hey, how are you doing, Dad? And he's like, how are you? And, on goes the conversation. And when I said, I'm okay, he's like, I can hear it in your voice. What's wrong? My dad always I would travel up for the holidays and then I would travel back. And he always required that I text him or call him when I get home. So he knew that I made it safely. He would always check in with me on my way up, check in with me on my way back. And so to be able to build that relationship with my dad was phenomenal. And so losing my dad in 2021 was very sudden, just like my brother. And he died from lung cancer. He was diagnosed in May, I want to say May of 2021, and he passed in July of 2021.
Wow, that was fast. Oh,
So really fast. He had been struggling with it for years, but he thought it was back pain.
oh,
So, and then he really, like my son built a relationship with him, and the difference, I want to say the difference between the two in the grieving process was with the second one, being in recovery and having the support system that I had allowed me to talk about the potential of my dad passing away. And I talked about the potential for relapse because it's just part of who I am, right? I wanted to make sure that people knew that, hey, this could be a time that I could relapse. And so the grief process looked completely different, yet so much the same, right? Those first anniversaries would come, and I would, I'd be prepping people a week before. I've got a death anniversary coming up, or I've got my dad's birthday's coming up, or Christmas is coming up, Thanksgiving is coming up, Father's Day, all that. And so learning to deal, and I say deal because grief is not something that goes away with time. Grief is not something that gets easier. Grief is not something that, you can, there's no time limit. There's no, grief is different for every single person. And with that being said, I believe that the deeper the bond, the deeper the grief. And so my dad and I didn't really have that long-term bond, right? But he was still that rock in my recovery and in my life. And so the anniversaries, I had already been through my brother. And so I was able to kind of prepare myself a little bit better for that.
Yeah.
And oh yeah. I remember the last holiday, when I hit when I hit the last holiday of the first year. I want to say that this last October, gosh, I feel like I'm a year behind. See,
time is funny. Plays tricks, doesn't it?
Grief does funny things, right?
Oh yeah.
So let's see, we're in 23 now. Yeah, so it was 2021. So I just passed his second birthday without him.
Yeah.
And it was still hard. Grief is funny. It comes on in different forms. And I'll, like, the week prior to a death anniversary, I'll be like, okay, and at this point, I've gotten to a point now where I can be like in my head, okay, this is coming up. I need to, remind myself on that day, and that day will come and I'll get up and I'll go about my business and do everything I need to do. And then I come home and I sit down and I'm like, whoa, that was today.
Yeah.
And I think that I do that probably as a little bit of avoidance, right? Because with my dad, I grieved my brother as well. It was like losing my brother all over again.
Right.
And so I've learned that reaching out is the best, way to handle my grief, even if it's just saying, hey, this next week's going to be hard for me, and this is why. Just helping people around us to understand where we are and what's going on.
Yeah.
Is
right.
substantial. I
Can I
know that
actually
I had,
go
go
ahead?
ahead.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, can I actually take us all into starting to talk about some of those? Because you're starting to talk a little bit about some of the things that are helpful, some of the ways that you have gone about managing that. And we think about people who are in similar situations, right? Who are dealing with deep grief, which, by the way, that deeper the bond, deeper the grief. It does feel that way in my relative experiences with other loss as well. Um, and so thinking about people going through that, wherever they are, whether it's fresh or quite a few years down the road, like 16 years like me, that and what we do and what's been helpful for us in that process. Maybe we kind of start there a little bit, since you kind of talked about preparing that. It's interesting that you say that week that you kind of start preparing. That's true for me too. Always I plan like a week around it. In part because, like, I don't know, like my body will react sometimes when my brain doesn't want me to, so, and time doesn't exactly line up, so it's several days before, some days after, try to prepare this week. And want to talk about the support system thing too, but Noble Lee, you also do the week thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
usually start talking to my sponsor like the first week in October, and just start. I mean, I don't know, preparing's the word, but um, gearing myself up for the date.
Yeah. One thing that's always so, like, I have felt blessed because my work life is such that I can say, these are my boundaries, y'all. I mean, I'm not giving people a choice, like, and I can draw those boundaries myself. I need this space. If for some reason I choose to do something different in during that time, that's all my uh purview. Although usually I wrote down another comment of yours, Tashina, that the phrase "the doors for grief," um those dates, those holidays, like you were talking about, like International Brothers Day, and Father's Day, we've talked about all these different days, these doors for grief, which I have actually in some ways grown grateful for, because I want to spend that time honoring my girl, and I where even if it means that I'm a wreck, for if that's the way it needs to be, that's the way it needs to be. But at any rate, I'm curious for the two of you, if you have the ability to do that too, if you're able to just say, nope, this is my time. Do you have employers that are supportive of that? Yeah.
For me personally, I have not up until this point, and I had to try to navigate through that, and I wasn't always successful. Sometimes I flat took off, and whatever happened with my job happened with my job, but I couldn't even get into it with previous coworkers and bosses, because I didn't feel like they genuinely cared about me, and I didn't want to introduce that vulnerability to them. So it ended up being were instances where I just kind of flipped out and ran out the door, and I was prepared to not have a job when I got done grieving my son, and whatever that was going to look like, that's how it was going to be. And I told myself that from the beginning. I put on my brave face and I would try to go, and I more times than not was not successful and ringing your whopper up when I was dying inside and didn't even want to be physically fucking alive,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And so I no and so I'm just 3 weeks and 3 days into my new job, so we will I feel like that this is going to be a whole different scenario where that is concerned, because there's a lot of support that I'm just not used to having. And I didn't send a company memo out on my loss, but I did, I have voiced it to the person that I shadow, and I told her, and so she was incredibly supportive through the infant vitality, and told me, you don't have to go. You don't have to go. If you leave, if you leave out of there in a snot bubble wreck, then there's no repercussions. There's no judgment. There's you do you.
Awesome.
And so I can already tell that that this is going to be a different different for that.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Tashina?
For me, I feel it necessary to share this. On 2017, I started my first job in recovery on my brother's birthday
Wow.
at the place that he used to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that like?
You know, all I could think about is how proud he would have been of me, or how proud he is
He is.
of me, and the progress, right? Because the last time that we had spoke, we had made the agreement that we would both get clean and that I would get my motorcycle endorsement. And because he had his, and we wanted to be able to ride together legally, you know. So every other, there's been certain days where things happen like that, and I find that majority of it is centered around my brother. But I haven't had a lot with my dad, right? And we're only a year and a half into, the loss of my dad. So, but my current employer, I haven't had that all along, right? Like, it hasn't been super good. And I think that's probably a piece of as to why I just get up and go that day and just let it go, because I have not, up until this point, had an employer who was understanding and empathetic and strength-based and client-led, even with their employees. And so now I have a job where I can literally I can text, I can call my supervisor and say, hey, I need to take PTO for the rest of the day, or hey, I'm really struggling, I need to go home. And there's no judgment, there's no question, it's just like let me rephrase that. There is a question. The only question is, are you okay? And I've never experienced that before. So I think that that's a piece as to why I just deal with it. But I noticed this last death date for my brother, which was at the beginning of this month, that I ended up not even having to be at work that day because it was a holiday, and it allowed me time to actually be able to think about him and not have to get up and run out the door to work to take care of what I needed to take care of. So I'm grateful today that I do have that employment. And I hope that for anybody else out there grieving that is watching this, you have the option or the opportunity to talk to your closest supervisor and just let them know, because a lot of the time we look past what people are willing to do when we are open and honest about what's going on with us.
Right. Right. And it takes some courage, right?
It does. It takes
To
a
do
lot of
that, a lot of courage. And because we know there've been employers like Nobly has had who aren't great. And hey, any employers listening, oh please, oh please, provide that space. And I'd say I get like sometimes like I feel this kind of crunchy feeling like, oh, well, it's been so many years. You still need this time. And I'm like,
Of course you do.
yes, of course I do. Um, and and I feel almost like I have to apologize if I haven't fallen apart on that day. You know, sometimes like there's this kind of just weird like drive that you have to like work. And I'm just like, um, I'm I need this day, however it turns out. Whether it's needing to cry and sob and fall apart, or it's to spend time looking at pictures or going out to do a little kayak or walk and and talk to my girl and just focus and be there, because life, this society we're in wants us to just go, and you know this is, in some ways, for me, this is how I get to hold her hand. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. um I have other notes that I've made that I wanted to raise up, but I want to give I don't want to dominate the questions. So um Nobly, is there other questions or comments or things that you've observed, that like, similarities, differences, things that are you want to talk about that are helpful, haven't been helpful?
Um, I just think that for me personally, I had, a lot of people in my inner circle that just were they just came in really hot. They're just coming in hot, and they're you should do this, and you need to do this, and why aren't you doing this, and it was like I did not need that. I did not need that. And I know that we've talked about this before, but um, I'm not going to call you back. I'm probably not going to text you back. I am probably not going to acknowledge anything, period. And when people get mad at you or judge you for that, that's not helpful. Um, and what is helpful is having um, you're solid in the background. Like this last time I wanted to go to the river, and I wanted to send things down in the stream, for Waylon, and I didn't know um, if if I wanted somebody there. I did, but I didn't. But I needed to, but I didn't. And so I was yin and yanging and all up and down, and so I have a sponsor, because I too am in recovery, and she just was over there by the tree, within, like, I can holler at her, but literally said nothing, did nothing, but stand there and wait for my cue.
Yeah.
And having that was huge, because I also I have 3 years clean and sober in March, and there's always that relapse factor. Is it going to make me want to use? Am I going to want to numb these gnarly feelings out, even though I haven't for the last almost 3? And so just having that person there, in case those thoughts arose with the grieving and stuff, was huge for me. And I think just if I needed to be in my bed in a fetal position and I did nothing but cry and scream into my pillow or whatever, that I was going to allow myself to do that, even if it meant a job, or it meant somebody not wanting to be my friend, or wanting to write me off, or whatever that may look like. Because, like you said, the similarity for me there is, that's my boy.
Yeah.
That's my boy. That's my day. And I might be, blowing bubbles up to the sky, or I might be in a fetal position. But that's my day. And I do like this, the silent support, if you will.
Yeah.
That was really, really, really helpful for me. And just knowing, like you had talked about, just if I don't answer you, even if it's a thumb up, or a heart emoji, don't stop reaching out,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it, I know you and I had talked about that, but um,
Yeah, but it's good to talk about it here, because I was recently reflecting on, there are a couple of people who still I find myself shocked and blessed, and when they are still sending me, hey, I know this is a tough day for you, and
yeah,
happy birthday to Jasmine, or if it's on the death date, just I know this is a tough date for you, and just sending my love. And um that's really only a couple of people, and in fact, on her last birthday, there was one, um
yeah,
and that it's and I know that especially when I was drinking and drugging, and all of that, and I was in the throes of, and even past that, honestly, after quitting and getting sober, like that's when I was most suicidal, actually, was in those few years after my first years of sobriety, and I couldn't talk to anybody,
yeah,
and I mean, it was just a shell. And I get it. Some people, you know feel like, oh, whatever, and they
yeah,
they go away. But I tell you what, those the folks who get it and understand, and I love them so deeply, and so grateful for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Mother's Day, you sent me a Mother's Day card, and it was one of the first ones. It says, anyway, it's right above my desk, and so I see that all the time. And I would never be able to say, if somebody asked me, "Are you a mother?" Yes, I'm a mother. I would never say no. I'm not a mother, because I don't physically see my son, because that's not the case. Um, but that meant, so much to me, and it always will, and it's always going to sit there. And if I start feeling, down, I look at that and say, yeah, I am a mom. I am a mom.
You
And
bet.
so it's those gestures and those kind things that
Yeah.
can make a world of difference.
Yeah. When it goes back to what you were talking about, Sheena, with the support system, right? That support system that it sounds like you were also active in building for yourself, right? So it is something like, we're not powerless in building in that support system.
No,
Um, yeah.
no, we are not powerless. I would like to say something to your previous question, though. I
Yes.
want to say that I remember when my brother passed away, everybody, I got flooded with this. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, just all this. What I felt at the time was pity. Um,
Mm.
and for me, for somebody to say that they're sorry means that they had a direct relation to what happened. And
Mm.
with the circumstances around my brother's death, um, that was especially hard for me. My condolences are great. Um, my thoughts are with you. Anything other than I am sorry, because it really just, I feel like it's just a jab.
Yeah.
And uh, and I too have to say that the gestures, it's the gestures, right? My dad's birthday happened not too long ago in October, and I only made it known to a few people, because I felt like I could handle it on my own. And one of my good friends showed up with cookies,
Oh,
you
awesome.
know, just showed up with cookies. And if I remember right, we went to her house and had dinner. She lives pretty close. But it's just those little things, right? I'm here, but I'm not invading. I'm here and I'm here to listen, but I'm not going to tell you what to do or how you should grieve.
Mhm.
Those are especially important for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting. I said that just reminded me too of um these wonderful gestures and some of the things that have given me, and this will be a little bit different for your experience, Noble Lee, because you have such a dense period. I want to say dense because that experience of carrying your child is intense. And because Jasmine had a longer life, other people had their own independent experiences with her. So one of this awesome little blessings have been people not necessarily notifying me, but people have sent things to me. Other people have said, hey, check this out. This person, like a parent of another kid, posted a story on her birthday about her on Facebook. Another one of her friends, many years later, posted something on her birthday or I think actually that was on her death date. Um, about her, like they were these gifts. Like I got to learn about her after
Yeah.
she was no longer physically here. And I was like, I mean, they will hopefully maybe now they will know how much that means
Yes.
to me. But I mean, wow, that stuff, just that kind of honoring. I'm curious if you had that, I imagine maybe your brother's talking about your brother Tashina. Have you had any of those kinds of experiences and gifts?
um, well, my brothers are kind of separated, right? I have one that I've never met, from my dad, two that were stepchildren from my dad, and then my two biological brothers from my mom, who I grew up with.
Yeah.
Um, my oldest brother, who was my other, he was related to my brother that passed by blood. Um, he'll message me. He messages me almost every birthday,
Mm.
in any anniversary. Um, even if it's just him saying he's going through it, with grieving my brother.
Right.
um, I appreciate those things,
Right.
um, because it's acknowledgement. It's
Yeah.
acknowledgement of the pain that I'm potentially going through,
Right.
whether
Right.
I'm having a really hard day that day or not. It means a lot.
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I
Um,
was listening to another podcast, that Maya Bialik, uh, her Bialik's breakdown, that she was talking about. Um, it was, I don't know, one of the episodes that talking about how we heal as a community. And I'm just like, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, for real. And I understand, and I think, folks need to understand that sometimes we need to be alone and we need to isolate, and that's okay too. Just not, I went on and isolated for years, and that was really scary. Um, that was not good. And so it's always a balance, I think in there. And I did, though, however, in those times there were some anniversaries where I was alone and dealing, and I had to reach out to a crisis line because I was uncomfortable talking to somebody I knew because I felt like, they didn't care. I made myself believe they didn't care anymore or things like that. But, thank God for the, crisis lines like that. So I'd like folks to remember that tool as well.
On that note, I would kind of like to just add in that crisis lines aren't necessarily just for people who are suicidal. Crisis lines are also for people who are dealing with depression,
Yes.
who don't have anybody to turn to. So please, for anybody watching, if you're going through it, you don't have to be suicidal. Just reach out.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for that reminder. Excellent reminder. I am noting our time. There's so much to say about all of this, and I don't want to. And we're not stuck to a particular timeline, but I'm wondering if there are other things that maybe we want to take a moment to point out. Anything else that we can share for people who are going through it, people who are supporting people who are going through it, personally, or maybe even like in the systems, like employers, like we've talked about. Any kind of thoughts to share, final kind of thoughts to remember about, even to remember about the experience. So it could be advice or anything along those lines. Final thought or thoughts.
I would just want to remind people that it's okay to advocate for yourself. Even if you're in a job where you don't feel that you're cared about or whatever, you don't have to get into graphic details as of to why you need to go. But you don't have to just sit there and suffer. Just suffer through your day like that, because you have that right. Basically you have that right. Um and so that was really important for me, to realize that I don't have to do that. um and I think just be kind in general, because at the end of the day, we don't know what people are going through. And I'm just in the business of just throwing kindness around, because um
Hope dealer.
I know, hope dealer.
Hope dealers.
I am a major hope dealer, and I'm just slinging that hope. And and I just have huge empathy for people in general, because I've been the homeless person, I've been the addict, I've been the domestic violence survivor. I've been the mother of a lost child, the sister of a murdered brother. It goes on and on and on. And
Yeah.
with that being said, I just want whoever listening to know that that there are people that care, and I'm one of them. And it's super cheesy or whatever as it may sound. From time to time, I don't have a partner. I'm not in a relationship. But from time to time, I can just stop and just give myself a big bear hug, and give myself credit for being a survivor of many, many things. And I think it's really important that everybody listening, that we give ourselves some grace, and that we acknowledge our accomplishments of just getting through the day, and not be hard on ourselves during these anniversary dates, because there is no rule book on grief. Like Tashina had mentioned, it looks different for everybody. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to make excuses or be sorry because you're not crying or you're not acting a certain way. That one thing that nobody can ever take is our memories of these loved ones that we're speaking about today. And I just want to mention really quick, I didn't mention it before, but in 1976, my older brother, my only brother, was kidnapped out of the back of my dad's truck, held captive for 4 days, and then murdered. That was 44 years ago ish, 44 years ago. And I still grieve him. My son was cremated. He wasn't buried, but my brother was buried. And every time I go home, I sit there and I have full blown, lengthy conversations with my brother. And I don't have to be at his grave to do that, but it still it still hurts. But then there are times too where I laugh and I smile and I think about this amazing little dude and he's still my big brother, even though I'm 48 and he's 6. He's still my big brother. You know what I mean? And so and the same rings true with Waylon. Like I remember, I just got to say this really quick. I ate and spent so much money on Frito scoops and salsa con queso cheese dip my whole pregnancy. And so I had this inside joke going, when my son goes to kindergarten or preschool, he's going to be like, all right, who's holding? Who's got the scoops? Because I ate it so much. And so to this day, when I go and I go get scoops, like just today, I bought a big gigantic thing of salsa con queso. But that makes my heart smile. And then in 2014, when I lost Waylon, Passenger Let Her Go was like the number one song. And present day, I cannot listen to Passenger Let Her Go without losing my shit. It's emotional. I can't do it. So just allow yourself to feel the, whatever it is that you're feeling, and give yourself so much grace, and use your lifelines, even if they're just on the back burner. Find your people and start letting your people know it's October. And so I'm grateful for this. So that's my final ditty.
Love it. Love it.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
kind of interject there and go off of what you said, Nobly. Grace, giving yourself grace in those times is super important. I did find one thing that really worked for me and still works today. I find the connection in the little things. So I am blessed to live in a town that, yeah, I mean, I live smack dab in the center of the grass seed capital of the world. Okay. With that being said, that means that there's mice, there's lambs, there's all kinds of things. So I get to see eagles. I drive specific ways to specific destinations, just to look for those. Sometimes I'm not even looking, and bam, there they are. And it's as odd and as ironic or whatever you want to call it may sound. I genuinely find peace in those moments. Peace in the moments that like, oh, and this is all in my head, right? Like, oh, I just crossed my path, it flew over the road that I'm driving on. It's okay. It's okay to have those things that you're holding on to the memory of your loved ones with. And it's okay. I remember, gosh, I still to this day talk to my dad and I talk to my brother like they're right here. I've managed to narrow it down to typically in my bedroom when I'm by myself, or in my car when I'm by myself. But I still talk to them like they're here, because in my mind they'll always be right here. They're right here and they're watching everything that I'm, everything that's going on in my life and my successes. And I mean, grab onto those little things that you can grab onto and find relation in, because it's going to help you in the long run to feel like you're not losing them, to feel like you're not losing the memory of them. And and now it's like I see two eagles flying. It used to be it was me and my brother, right? And well, now it's my brother and my dad. They both collected eagles too, so it's a there's all these little sentimental things that you can find with the loved ones that you have. And grief is hard. You don't have to do it alone. Sometimes we feel that we need to do it alone. But there's more people out there that understand than we could possibly even know. People lose people every day to traumatic situations. And as horrible as it is, to lose someone that you love, there's someone out there who can relate with you. And I mean, at the risk of sounding crazy, I talk to myself a lot, and I'm okay with that, because it's like it's how I keep them alive in here. I have in all honesty, I lost my mom in 2010, and I went and I took some of her ashes and had them put into a tattoo on the back of my neck here. So I carry my mom with me every single day, and I have plans to do the same with my brother's ashes and my dad's ashes. My grandfather, my mother, my brother, and soon to be my dad are all spread at the same place, which is, it's a place that I grew up around. And it was my grandfather's dying wish to be spread there, because it overlooks where he grew up. And we felt it only right to put my mom there and my brother there. And so I feel it only right to put at least a portion of the ashes there of my dad as well. And so there's all these little things that I've put in place, that mean something. Or so just find the beauty in the small things. I know some people relate to butterflies, blue jays. There's all kinds of things that you can relate your loved one to. I'm sure that when I pass, my kids will relate it to frogs because I collect them. Yeah, just relate it to something of nature. And it might not be as easy for everyone to find something, but it's worth it, because you never know the majestic beauty that's going to unfold in front of you. And to be able to drive down these specific roads and watch eagles have a lunch sitting in a field just because I happen to drive by it, is priceless to me. Because it's literally like they're standing or sitting or flying right there. My loved ones.
I'm gonna just go ahead and riff off of that too, because, and I would say, it is so tempting to try to deny those things, right? The sense that your loved one has shown up in a butterfly. That's definitely a thing for me. Definitely, just had it recently. The butterfly followed me down the path, and I was like, oh, Jasmine. I swear, one of my cats is like the way that cat cares for me. I swear it's my daughter showing up. Lots of things like that. And every time I'm tempted to try to say, oh yeah, well, that's probably not real, and to deny it. I think back to my friend's father, who is actually the minister who presided over my daughter's memorial service. At the time, I called myself a non-practicing agnostic. Like, I don't even wonder is what I would always say, whether or not there was a God. And he said, And I talked to him about that. I was like, I was really struggling. And he said, I tell you what, Megan, he said, you believe whatever you need to believe at any given moment, and that is the right thing. And that has stuck with me ever since. It has carried me. And that just allowing the space to be with whatever is true to me in a moment has been incredibly powerful and beautiful. Plus, I have over here in the back, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of blocked by my microphone here, is a stuffed monkey, which is my daughter's first ever gift from somebody. And it allows me to put my arms around and snuggle when I feel sad. I also have on the bed back there a blanket, one that was hers and one that actually a coworker quilted for me after she died. That sometimes it's like the hug thing you were doing nobly, like the blanket hug is also a wonderful thing, comforting. Um, yeah. So yeah, believe whatever we need to believe and lean into that. There is so much beyond what we know. I don't know anybody who can argue with that, so may as well. And by the way, I was actually talking to a friend of mine who I mentioned earlier, who lost her husband, and a I was talking to her outside, and a road runner ran across the road, which I commented on, and she said, "Oh my gosh, her husband died a very painful, drawn out death, which was also very traumatic for her." And um, she said toward the end, took up painting. He's a musician, but couldn't sing or play anymore. So he took up painting and started painting roadrunners. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I swear that was just him knowing I'm talking to you, running by and saying hi." So, I mean, just stuff like that, right? I mean, that's pretty amazing. I think I wanted to mention two other things. One is to underscore that strength. Um, uh, and not in a way like I used to have people tell me, "Oh, Megan, you're so strong," because they would see me showing up and playing like I was okay. To me, that wasn't the strong part. To me, the strong part was going through my emotions, reaching out for help when I needed it, being honest about what I was feeling. That was real strength. And I just, I would feel bad because I would feel like if I told those things, that those were considered weakness. And I was like, it's just not so. To lean into it and to the shit hand that life has dealt many of us, really, and to struggle with it and survive through it is an incredible strength. So I just want to honor all of us going through that. And finally, I want to make a suggestion to folks out there, to partners of people who are going through it. We haven't mentioned partners so much. I've had different partners along the way. And early on, I had somebody who was just terrified about what I was doing. And he was like trying to fix me all the time. And I was like, "Oh my God, I can't, I need to do what I need to do here. And I need you to not try to fix me." Um, and I have been very lucky somewhere along the way to met my current husband, who I never thought I would ever get somebody like a partner who would really support me the way I needed to support me. And he somehow just, when I am a wreck, sits next to me if I'm okay with it. He holds my hand, and that's it, and lets me do what I need to do. And so I just like, I'm sure inside him, he's like wanting to fix it and wanting to do all of these things. And so to folks out there who are parents, siblings, partners, who just desperately want to help, if you can just be there by somebody's side, and trust them to um, go through it, and just know that you're there. They'll reach out to you when they need to. So
Nicely said.
I have really enjoyed this conversation with both of you. Tashina,
Same.
like you added some serious magic to this
Yeah.
conversation, and
I
I'm
knew she
really
would.
grateful.
Thank you. I kind of have to throw in here real quick. You were both warriors. And I say that because one of my biggest reservations in my recovery is the loss of a child.
Mhm.
I tear up just talking about it. And so you both are just warrior women, really, because you're still standing. You're both clean and sober. And here you are reaching out to people to try and aid them in their grief.
Mm.
And I think what you're doing here is it's probably going to reach more people than you even anticipate. And, to help one person, I always used to say that my purpose here on life is, or on this earth, is to make people smile. And if I could make one person smile a day, then I've done my job here on earth. And today it still kind of holds true, but today it's support, right? And I also want to outline for anybody watching that there's a fine line between empathy and sympathy.
Mm.
And people in grief, at least in my experience, do not need your sympathy, but they need your empathy.
Yeah.
And I appreciate both of you for doing what you're doing.
Mm.
And I look forward to seeing the outcome. Even if it's just the videos, I'm okay with that too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much. That was beautiful. And I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely check it out. We'll send you the link
Yes,
so you can have it. Of course, if you're on social media, follow us on Facebook on Surviving. And who knows, maybe you'd like to come back at another time. I'd sure love to talk with you some more. So
thank you.
yeah. Awesome.
Tashina, I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I love you. You've been one of my solids, and so I just knew there wasn't even a question in my mind that I wanted you to be the first guest, and that I wanted that I knew that you would that what you had to say would be also very powerful. And I'm just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here if you need a guest in the future, especially if you know that it touches my heart closely.
Yeah.
Because genuinely, what has me here is helping people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All of us, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it feels just be good to be in this virtual room together with that shared purpose, and hopefully inspire more and more people to do that too. Yeah. All right. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap up. We'll talk about next week's. And actually, Tashina, you're welcome to stay. I want to say our next week, while you're still here, our next week's topic is telling our truths. A lot of this stuff is really, really hard to talk about. The society we live in has built in a lot of shame around a lot of, at least trying to put shame on us for a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. And yeah, so yeah, in 2 weeks, I should say. This is on a bi-weekly cycle.
Yeah.
So our next set of articles and discussion will be on that. And we will be joined by my brother. And Tashina, part of the reason I was crying listening to you is, thinking about your warrior self as well, because of how important my brother is to me. And yeah. And yeah, I can't even imagine losing him. So anyway, yeah, all in this. And he's going to help us talk about what it is in that struggle with telling our truths, and from his own perspective as well, as kind of leaning into some of the really uncomfortable things that I'm going to talk about next week. So, yeah. So I hope everybody will join us there. Also hope folks will join us on Facebook over the coming week to share thoughts. There is a link with the YouTube too, where folks can actually, and on Facebook, where they can share their own stories, and we'll help get those heard. So more and more folks, we know we're not alone, and there's hope. Yeah. So with that, we close with two things. We close with the first two medicines, water and laughter. And we start with laughter, with one of the things I so loved to learn about Nobly from the first time we met is her love for dad jokes. So Nobly,
All
take
right.
it away.
So don't judge now. So what do you call a car driven by a sheep in a bathing suit?
What?
A lamb bikini.
I love it.
I have one. Can I tell it?
Yes, please.
Of course. Stop.
If you can get it out.
What do you call a T-Rex wrapped in bacon?
What?
Jurassic bacon.
Love it.
Oh my gosh.
I wish I had one to add, but I don't. But I will add knocking things off my tabletop for a little comic relief.
Right.
And a water cheers to you both.
Water is life. Yay.
Water is life. Thank you all. Until next time. Thank you so much. Mwah.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.